Good morning, friends. It's your boy, Max Mogren, reporting live for you from beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. This is Wake Up News for November 3rd, 2017. We got a big show for you today. I got Madeline Merritt, interview with her today live from LA. She's an actress and activist down there who's very involved, very on point, and I got nothing but good things to say about her. We might as well bring her in because she is in the lobby, just about ready to go. She wanted to share this to a couple pages. Good morning, Israel. Good morning, David. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Whoa, there we go. Yeah, lots of interesting comments. Good morning, Geo Folds. Good morning, Nolan Conger. Good morning, J. Scott Knorr. We get a variety of perspectives here. Shaban, good luck with the Taurus full moon. Thank you, Andreas the man. I like your gun there, brother. Hello, Germany. Thanks for tuning in. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring Madeline into the broadcast in just a few seconds. Looks like she's still busy sharing things, but she should be ready to rock. Carrie Joanne McGrath, good afternoon to you. Morning Hill still here in Wyoming. Great that we have such a large audience all over the world. Yesterday we had an interview with Derek Brose. I want to apologize for the technical difficulties we had. Thank you for your patience as we're getting all the kinks ironed out here at Wake Up News. And Derek focused on solutions. Madeline Merritt also focused on solutions. Derek's approach is the freedom cells, anarchist, agorist movement. And Madeline is more focused on working through the system, working with the system to improve things. So without any further ado, let's bring in Madeline Merritt. Good morning, Madeline. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We really appreciate having you here, and thank you so much. Can you tell us just a little about yourself for people that might not be familiar with your work?
Yeah, well, my name is Madeline Merritt, and I have been an actress living in LA for almost 10 years now. Grew up in Northern California. I went to Northwestern University where I had a double major in theater and political science out there. So I've always been one of those people that love art. I'm an artist at heart, but I also really have wanted to help be a part of the good change that needs to come in this world. So, it's always, ever since I was a kid, I was an environmentalist. I worked to help save the California freshwater shrimp through a school project at age 9, which actually led me to, speaking at a congressional hearing, being heckled by a crowd in Fresno. And from there, I just continued standing up, against the war in Iraq. Led protests there in high school, and at college I was the president for the students for the Campus Kitchens project, which took leftover food from the dining halls and re-delivered them to needy people in our community. So I've always had a real interest in social justice, in a high quality of life for every human being on this planet, an equal right to life, education, liberty, all of those good things. I think that the fear-based mentalities that basically divide resources are really a system of control that need to be combated, because I do think that we all have the ability to live abundant lives and also create a planet that's sustainable for future generations. I think in the years post-college, I got a little, I would say, complacent. We had a president who looked great on paper, who didn't accomplish all the things that a lot of us hoped he would. And I just honestly kind of lost heart in those years and thought, well, what are we going to do about it? You think you have this great leader and they don't really have the power to affect change the way you would like to see it. So I really focused on acting and art during those years. Combating some of the misogyny in the scene in Hollywood was one of my main goals at that time. I wrote for an online women in entertainment magazine called Ms. in the Biz, and a lot of what I wrote about was kind of the misogyny in Hollywood and how women are underemployed and paid less and treated worse, in all sorts of projects from micro indies all the way up to the big budget stuff. So this year, basically, I had a huge awakening with Standing Rock and with the Trump election. I realized that as much as I love the arts, I really had to dig in and make a change in our community now, that there's no time to waste. My mantra this year has been, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? And I take that as a personal mantra, and I love to share that with people, because I really want to spread the word about empowering ourselves to make change in this world. And I think that we are supremely powerful and can make that change when we dive in and really start doing the work and showing up and knocking on our representatives' doors, showing up at our city councils, and really creating goals around the policies we want to change and organizing in groups to get it done. So I went to Standing Rock in the fall, well, actually early winter in December, with a mission to deliver some much needed supplies for the wintering water protectors who were staying throughout the winter. I then went to DC with the Standing Rock delegation in January during the inauguration week, and we spoke to several representatives on the Hill, trying to get them to stand up for Standing Rock. And then I went back to camp in the last couple weeks before the eviction to help with cleanup and to actually evacuate that original trailer that I brought out there to another camp that is getting swinging in South Dakota that's against the Keystone oil pipeline. So I was there at camp at the end when, we were, as Max knows, Max was there as well, as we were surrounded by National Guard troops, guns, tanks pointed at us, the bright lights, and the eviction that just was not moved, even despite the weather conditions that may have been created. Max would love to talk to you about that as well. Coming back from that, I just knew that I had to dive into our community here in Los Angeles and really affect change. So that's what I've been doing since getting back from camp.
Right on. That's where we met. Madeline and I met out at Standing Rock. Like she said earlier, she was out there several times. Her and Miller Reeser, who a lot of people in Wyoming know, the Reeser family started Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, brought a trailer, a really nice travel trailer full of supplies out to Standing Rock, and really made a positive difference there. And wow, you are very busy these days, Madeline. I don't even know where to begin with your ongoing activism. We've got SB 562, the Divest LA movement, the Me Too March, and the Young Progressives. Why don't we, I'm sure a lot of people are really interested in it, so maybe we should just get into it, the whole Hollywood pedophilia / casting couch thing. Maybe you can give us a little bit of background about your experience as an actress and what you've seen, and then what's going on out there now, and the Me Too March that's scheduled for, I believe it's November 11th. Is that correct?
November 12th, I believe. Can you double check that for me, Max?
Yeah, certainly. I'll bring that page up right now while you're letting us know a little bit about it.
Yeah, so, I am lucky in that nothing horrific happened to me in my career in Hollywood. However, I received a lot of, really horrific advice. When I got out here, I was, a 21-year-old young woman, recently graduated from college. A lot of the feedback I got was, wow, you're here a little late. You're a little old to start an acting career, which I found interesting. And then I also was given a lot of advice. Well, if you're going to make it, what you have to do is to date a much older, powerful producer or director. And if you want those introductions, I can get them for you. Because of who I am and just the way I operate, I've always found those sort of gestures and innuendos really disturbing. And I became very protective about what type of situation I put myself in. I had some indie producers in the early days that were very gross, but I was also able to really hold up a strong boundary and just avoid certain situations. But they were widely known, and I had a lot of friends who didn't avoid certain situations and were victimized. And now, with all of this coming out, a lot of them have been triggered. A lot of their memories are coming back, really facing up to the abuse that they experienced in Hollywood. The level of misogyny is so overwhelming, you know, from the looks-based casting that women have to undergo, the fact that your value is your sex appeal, the fact that the type of roles you're playing are often sex objects, accessories to men, rather than roles that are really strong women-based roles. So I really started being very selective in the type of work I was willing to do. And that, I think, Max, we may be having a problem. Someone's saying there's no live feed. So anyhow,
it's working for some, Madeline. It's just, you know, it's funny. We have no shortage of people who let us know that the feed will come and go. They'll get booted out. Facebook will say, we're sorry, we're having a problem playing this video for you right now. So we've got an audience and the feed's going out. But, you know, some people definitely have a problem with connection here. I don't know why. I feel like we're kind of trapped in this little box of algorithms where we're not allowed to reach a very big audience, especially when we're talking about important issues like this one with the, you know, the casting couch and really the disturbing pedophilia and sexual abuse that occurs not just in Hollywood, but kind of in the halls of power, whether it's the financial sector in New York City or the political sector of Washington, D.C., and then Hollywood. Obviously, it's really rampant out there. So, yeah, keep going if you don't mind.
Yeah, so when all of this has come down, you know, I'm lucky to be on the leadership team for California for Progress, which is a great organization that operates out of Bernie's Coffee Shop here in Los Angeles. Formerly known as Johnny's. It's a really great central location for a lot of the progressive actions going on here in LA. And they have coordinated with a bunch of other organizations to put on the Me Too Solidarity March, which is happening on November 12th. We're going to have a lot of speakers who have experienced sexual assault. And really what we're trying to do is to magnify the issue, because it isn't just Hollywood. Like you said, Max, it happens in all the realms of power. Women are consistently underemployed and underpaid, especially as you move up through the ranks of business. And in Hollywood, you know, because we don't have a studio system and everything acts so independently, this sort of boys club is very easy to maintain and very hard to combat. And one of the things I really experienced was constantly running up against that discrimination, where I'd even, as a producer or someone who's more on the creative side of things, I'd be right in the thick of the action during the development process, all the way up through the shooting. And then as soon as we were taking meetings, suddenly, oh, my bro from Florida's taken over. Thanks. Eat rocks. We're cool. Thanks. Oh, you want that deadline? Now you're being naggy. No, thanks. I don't want you on my project anymore. And just stuff like that happens so many times.
So you put a bunch of work into something and you put a lot of effort into it, and then you get burned by the old boys club, basically.
Yeah, and the young boys club. Like, I mean, to all my young indie director friends and producers, start hiring more women. I see you. You guys are 5 dudes putting on these movies and then trying to come up and say, like, you're standing with women in this Me Too solidarity thing. And when you only hire your bros that you grew up with. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of issues there. In terms of you know, until we really start hiring and paying women at equal rates in all levels of the entertainment industry, you're going to have the power plays that end up in sexual assault and just harassment. So the Me Too March is about not only combating what's going on in Hollywood, but really raising it to a new level and sharing the fact that it's this culture, right? This experience that women have of being attacked and being raped, assaulted, harassed, discriminated against happens all over society, and it's something that needs to end. And, you know, for me, I think it's very symptomatic of the fact that our you know, our capitalist society built on an extractive infrastructure of removing, removing precious metals and oil from our planet, that in itself is rape culture. So it's no surprise to me that women are also discriminated against when we treat our planet the way that we do.
Yeah, in a culture where we don't even have respect for Mother Earth as a society, how are we going to respect women properly?
Yeah.
On the same band. And you're right. The discrepancy between pay for men and women doing the same jobs, not just in the entertainment industry, but across the board, is pretty shocking. It's a holdover from a bygone era. It's time to change that. And that's what I like about you, especially, or your message is, a lot of we live in such a divisive society where people try to divide us based on our race or our class or our sex. And I think you have got a really good balance where you speak up for women's rights, you speak up for equality, but it's not like a men are the enemy thing. It's like, let's all work together and move this civilization forward, which I think is the right approach.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
I mean, we're all human beings, right? Like, male and female is such a culturalized roles. They come from our society and from generations and culture and as we've seen, as more and more people are defining themselves in new ways, the male and female identity can be very limiting when you're stuck in different roles. And we all do have to work together and respect one another. All races, creeds, body types, all of those things. We're all freaking human, enjoying this short-term ride on this planet, and hopefully we can leave the planet a little better than where we got it.
Yeah. Absolutely. We got a great comment from one of our regular viewers here, Doug Meyer, chiming in saying the greed controls everything. And that's certainly true. Once you get into that mentality where it's all about money and power, it's like the old Coolio song, Gangster's Paradise, minute after minute, hour after hour, money into money, power into power, something like that. And, the Gangster's Paradise is like the financial system, the corruption in the political system, the corruption in the entertainment industry, the military-industrial complex. And one project that you've had some success with that deals with greed, deals with the financial system, and also looks at the planet as a whole is the Divest LA movement that you've been very active in. And I think it's a great one to bring up because you've had a lot of success there. Can you tell us more about Divest LA?
Absolutely, Max. So going back, once I got back from Standing Rock, the first thing I did was get super involved with Divest LA. And as you can see, Divest LA is a movement here in Los Angeles, a continuation of the divestment movement that's happening all over the country. And our core belief is that we have to take our public dollars, our personal dollars, and the dollars from our institutions out of the big corrupt banks. Here in Los Angeles, the first bank that we are working towards exiting is Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has a long history of abuses. It is one of the key funders of the DAPL pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline. It has done a terrible amount of bad things to people of color in Los Angeles, a lot of foreclosures, very targeted lending practices. They've really hurt a lot of people. And historically, all the way back to the 1800s and gold rush age, they actually were delivering from the government $5 notes per native scalp. So really, they've been bad for a long time, and it's time to stop doing business with them. So what we have done with Divest LA is really done this is a photograph you're seeing now of basically a sit-in at City Council. Basically, we just came in and started showing up every week at City Council with our message to divest LA from Wells Fargo. So starting in February, we really started making these occupations something that we did weekly. And we also started, writing policy, showing up at city council, and really acting to start acting as a lobbying team with our council people. So we did a lot of education around the issue for our council people, and we didn't go away. So we were lucky enough to find in Councilman O'Farrell a desire to also support this divestment from Wells Fargo, and we've moved it through an initial victory where the cities agreed to divest $40 million from Wells Fargo. That's the amount that is in the investment portfolio. And then there's a whole other amount that the city does its depositories and banking services with Wells Fargo as well. So right now there's a financial feasibility study going on about how we can divest those services from Wells Fargo and outsource those services to different institutions, whether they be credit unions, community banks, or the new development, which is a public municipal bank of Los Angeles, which we are also leading the fight towards creating. We really right now are working behind the scenes there to work with our council people to create a public municipal bank that will have at the core of its foundation ethical standards and essentially a people's bank ethos written into its very charter, so that the bank itself can't invest in fossil fuel infrastructure, in weapons manufacture, or in private prisons. So those things are three industries that we targeted that really harm our people, our planet, and those are the industries we don't want to work with. And so we've been acting on many fronts. I actually helped write a piece of legislation that should be going into council soon called the Responsible Investment Ordinance. And that will actually apply to all of the city of Los Angeles's investments, where we put ethical standards, so ethical social and governance standards into our investment portfolio. So we withdraw our funds from fossil fuels, withdraw our funds from weapons manufacture, nuclear, and withdraw our funds from private prisons. So what we're trying to do here is to really ask our representatives to put the money where their mouth is, right? We have a city that likes to talk about being green and ecological and standing up for homelessness and doing all these great things in the world. And our answer to that is, yes, we agree with you, but a big part of doing that is where you put your money. You can't say that you're for the planet and then, on the other hand, have $600 million invested in Exxon, which is what the city does in its financial portfolio. So that there's a lot to discuss in terms of the divestment and what we're doing, but really it's about taking back citizens' input into our financial portfolios and not allowing it to just be isolated. For so long, the banks have been like, oh, don't worry, don't look over here. This is just your money. Like, oh, this isn't a political issue. We're just safeguarding your money. And the fact is that every major public works project, half of the budget goes to pay off interest on these loans from these major banks that are going just to line the pockets of those bankers. Now, once you start talking about a public municipal bank, we could have lower interest rates. And then those interest rates that we do collect, those could go to serve public works projects. So, we're really talking about taking back money for the public good in the public interest. And we're working on many fronts to make that happen.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's, so many people get so frustrated with the political process that they just drop out. And it's great to talk with somebody that's actually taken it to City Hall, and not just City Hall, but City Hall in one of the largest cities in the United States. The $40 million divested already is a great start. And if you can follow through with this whole project, that's a colossal victory for the people in opposition to the financial system. I think everybody here at Wake Up Wyoming knows that the people that really call the shots are the ones that have all the money, right? the people that are elected, it's so easy for them to be lobbied or be bribed by the big industries, the fossil fuel industry, the financial industry. And it's kind of neat to see your group. You said the word lobbying directly. Your people, real hardworking Los Angelinos who are lobbying City Hall for a solution that's really better for the city, better for the people of the city, better for everyone involved. Because with your notion of ethical investments with the city's money, it's a no-brainer. So that's great to see. Another project you're working on is the SB 562, and healthcare. That's a healthcare bill. Obviously, the healthcare system in this whole country is in shambles. It seems like there are no real easy solutions, but this is one thing that you've been helping out with. Can you tell us more? Excuse me. Can you tell us more about that initiative?
Yeah, well, I have to say I haven't been as involved with this specific issue other than just being enraged by the folks in California's state government that claim to be progressive or liberal or Democrat. Essentially, we have a solution that most Californians support in this bill called SB 562, where we could put California on the map as the first single-payer healthcare state and really, prove that this model is better for people. Right off the bat, it cuts 20% of medical costs go out the door because we aren't paying off some middlemen who get to decide what kind of treatment you get. So this bill did pass the Senate, the state Senate here in California, and then it was killed when House Speaker Rendon refused to bring it to committee. And so basically the bill just sputtered and died here this year, which was a really sad day for Californians. And a lot of my compatriots at California for Progress worked really hard, and my compatriots at SoCal 350 worked very hard to support this bill, because I think true progressives believe that healthcare is a human right. It's something we all, as Americans in the richest nation in the world, should have access to healthcare, should have access to a place to live. I would say, we treat humanity as if it's just up to us to make it, and if we don't, that there's something wrong with us. I just don't buy it. But I think Medicare for all and healthcare for all is something that's really important in creating a society that's healthy and sustainable. So basically, the sad story of this bill is that it did get a lot of political support. There was a ton of people power behind getting this bill passed, and it passed the Senate, and then it was held up in the House by Speaker Rendon, and Jerry Brown didn't stand up for it, and even Senator De Leon didn't become the hero that the bill needed. And as some of you may know, De Leon is now wanting to enter the race against Feinstein as senator and to replace her as the progressive candidate. My argument is that no, he's still super establishment and that he didn't stand up for SB 562. So is he truly a progressive or one of those faux progressives? And I could go on and on about the political infighting in the progressive movement, which we need to all work together. But I am suspicious of these three politicians who collectively in the last 3 years have received $3.4 million from the health insurance lobby. So even though Medicare for All is super supported here in California by California citizens, it had a sputtering death in the halls of Sacramento, which is why I want more progressives in California to run for office and to actually represent the progressive people of California.
Yeah, you sent me a link to the boldprogressives.org. Would you like to talk about that a little bit right now? Is that a good segue?
Yeah, that's a great segue. I had the opportunity to go to a national candidates training this summer in DC with the Bold Progressives. Now, they represent Elizabeth Warren, Randy Bryce, who is a super exciting race. He's trying to oust Paul Ryan from the House. And Randy Bryce is like as freaking salt of the earth as it comes. He is a steel worker and he is a real person from his district in Wyoming. I'm not Wyoming, Wisconsin. He's a freaking awesome dude. They rep there. He's one of their candidates. Keith Ellison was one of their candidates. And what they're about is to be the progressive wing of American politics. And I want you to notice that I didn't say the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. I think one of our issues is that there's a lot of people who have been, divided by these party lines and identity politics. And the truth is that there's a lot of people hurting out there. And we really need to come up with solutions, and progressive solutions, I believe, to help people, real working families, get access to the services that they deserve, and to have a living wage, education that's debt-free, Medicare, these basic things. And we don't need to call it a Democratic movement or a Republican movement. We need to embrace the fact that we need to create progressive policy that includes everyone, that we can all benefit from, and stop the identity politics of Republican Democrat. Because let's face it, and you know this, Max, they're all paid for by the same people. We've got big money in politics that's paying both sides of the aisle. And, these guys, in my opinion, are often just suits. Either they're in a red jersey or a blue jersey. And they're all essentially being bought and paid for by the same people behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm glad you touched on that, because a lot of people, myself included at times, are so jaded by the political system that we just disengage entirely. And it's like, so a lot of people, just to hear somebody mention their support for some candidate, immediately are just, they throw their hands up and they're like, it doesn't matter. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about your work, is that, you acknowledge that the system is totally corrupt. You acknowledge that both parties are totally corrupt. Yet you're willing, or you're willing to infiltrate the Democratic Party to try to make them actually practice what they preach.
Yeah.
If
only conservatives were fiscally conservative, and if only Democrats actually served the people, we might be living in a country that was a little better. But right. Unfortunately, both of them are talking out of one side of their face and acting with the other.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've seen interesting graphs where they show how the budget deficit or the national debt increases under different administrations. And often it's the presidents who are seen as being the most fiscally responsible who have the biggest deficit leaps. Guys like Reagan, huge boost in the deficit and the national debt. So you're absolutely right. They say one thing, they do the exact other. And with healthcare, we were talking about the Healthy California Act. California, obviously, I believe it's the 5th largest economy in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, it vacillates between 5th and 7th, but it's somewhere there today. Yeah.
And you're, one thing that really caught my eye recently was all the fires in California. You had some fires in LA, and then the fires up in Sonoma County were even worse. Can you tell us a little bit about the fires? And I hope you'll have a chance to mention your friend Colton that we both met out at Standing Rock, and his situation when those fires took off in Northern California.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, we're seeing the effects of climate change. They're coming quicker than any of us may have suspected. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about acting now to switch over to renewable energy. But I actually grew up in Northern California, just south of where those fires in Santa Rosa were, in Marin County for most of my life. So I had a lot of friends who were directly affected by those fires, family homes who burned down. And, they were massive. We finally got some rain. So there was a lot of vegetation this year. After years and years of drought, we got a huge rainfall this year, and then followed by a really hot summer. So a lot of that dry vegetation just fed these massive wildfires. And I also think that some of the larger economic issues, right, where we haven't seen a real pay raise for working people since 1978, right? And as everything else has gotten more expensive. So I also think that, people's ability to keep their land trimmed and their foliage down has been lessened. I mean, there's many factors that go into what fueled these fires. But they were devastating, and they ripped through communities and killed, hundreds of people in the night. There's also the aspect where the Sonoma County didn't use the emergency alert system. They used a new app that they told homeowners to download, and if you hadn't done that, then you were SOL with the emergency response. Being informed about it. But I have a dear friend, Colton Jones, who is just honestly one of the most inspiring people one could ever meet. He really lives his life from a place of spirit forward, heart forward. And he was up in Northern California working on some property up there. And there, in the week following the wildfires, as they raged, a asthma attack, it triggered a massive asthma attack. And he coped with asthma, but it had never been that serious. And he basically went into a cardiac arrest, and it took them 20 minutes to revive this beautiful human being. And so he has been in intensive care for the last 2 weeks. He is still unconscious. There's been some eye movement, and a couple gestures have happened, which is good news. That's his partner Shira there on the screen. They've been together. They've known each other since they were young children. They've been partners for years. He's just truly one of the most awakened people, and the way that he serves community and the way he is working to help the next level of the human evolution is just so inspiring to me constantly. So if your audience can go and support in any way, he was just medical flight. They had to get a special medical flight back to Philadelphia so he could be reunited with his family out there. And his partner Shira is going to be going and joining him shortly to be by his side through his recovery. If you could donate $5, $3, $10 to this beautiful human being who's doing so much for her community in his recovery, that would be incredible. So all of you, and also just prayers and positive vibes for the best outcome for this young man. He is truly an incredible human being, living his purpose to the fullest, and we really want to see him back. So yeah, thank you, CJ. We love you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for putting that in there. Appreciate it. We see the real, we see a stark example of the real human impact of these fires. And, the shocking statistics around the world, they say air pollution, he was obviously affected very severely by the air pollution from these fires, but how air pollution all over the world impacts people. And one thing you mentioned earlier with Standing Rock was the crazy warm temperatures there at the end there. We had a great comment from one of our regular viewers here, Jerry Ann Durbin. She says, climate change is a fallacy. The planet is purposely being terraformed or geoengineered. And that's an issue I'm really passionate about that really doesn't get much coverage in the mainstream. What are your thoughts on geoengineering as it exists now, and as it's widely reported on in the mainstream as a solution to climate change, but a lot of people around the world hold the belief that that's the primary source of the climate change we're seeing is these widespread overt and covert weather modification programs. Can we get your take on that?
Well, I am hesitant to think that the programs are the main cause of climate change, because we are dumping massive amounts of carbon into our atmosphere. And, I think that threatens to turn our planet into Venus sooner than we know. However, I can tell you that I did witness some very suspicious climate interaction at Standing Rock, and you know, my story briefly was I was taking down the dome, that was the central dome at Standing Rock one day, and just looked up and saw these, you know, planes making crosshatches in the sky. And at that point, we still had a nice layer of ice over the permafrost there. And this is early February, right? So we're still, and I went to school in Chicago, and really you're seeing hard winter conditions, at least in Chicago, up through, you know, March, April even. So that thin layer of ice was still there, and it's what we used to drive equipment. You know, we needed that thin layer of ice to basically evacuate all of this gear that we had. And we were trying to evacuate. Oh, love these photos. And so I see that crosshatching. Oh, you can see it right there. It's a good example. And right, we're not near a major airport. Like, we're out in the middle of North Dakota, right? And then the next day, the temperature had gone up by 30 degrees, you know? So, and that nice little layer of ice we were driving upon disappeared. And now we are talking about foot and a half deep mud. So I've certainly seen, you know, this type of weather modification, and it's just normalized in California. You see it over the Central Valley all the time. And you've seen it kind of ahead of big storms in Texas and Colorado over the last few years. And it's even been mentioned in the LA Times. So it is happening, and it is out there. And I think there is a huge potential for it to be weaponized and used to affect mass consciousness, right? And I don't have any claims to know who is using it or why, but I do know that it's certainly within the realm of these people to affect, you know, massive impacts to large groups of people, as we've seen, you know, this summer with all of the hurricanes. So, you know, it's something. It's one of the big parts of the mystery, Max. You know, who's running the show and what are they doing and why? I tend to think, wow, these guys are trying to create an apocalypse that they somehow hope to survive. You know, and I would like for all of us to survive, or a good amount of us too.
Right. It's really, you know, it feels like an almost insurmountable, what do they call it, a convergence of catastrophes, most of them man-made. And, you know, I appreciate your perspective there on carbon emissions or all sorts of pollution. You know, there are so many different factors in play in the climate, like even things like power line harmonic resonance, meaning the energy that's flowing through power lines will create a feedback loop in the upper atmosphere that will cause ions to come tumbling down and turn into cloud condensation nuclei. There's so many factors at play in the climate that the mainstreams, you know, only focusing on carbon emissions is just not giving us, as who is it? The rest of the story, so to speak, as that old news anchor would always say. I forget his name right now. Doug Meyer chiming in, he says they have underground homes with everything they need to survive, right? It seems like the powers that shouldn't be the so-called elites, the self-proclaimed elites, have a contingency plan if things keep going poorly, that they're just going to kind of, you know, go underground.
They're directing things to go poorly, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point. They are, you know, not standing up to the people who really want, I think, in mass, we want to do the things that are going to turn this ship around, but we aren't being given the tools from our government. Yep, I like the comment about going vegan. I just went vegan this summer. I still eat some dairy. I'm not perfect, but I'm working on it. You know, I used to think, oh, I'm going to feel so terrible without meat, and you know what? I feel great.
Yeah.
Problem.
Daniel Reichert filling in the hole in my brain there. Paul Harvey, who would give people the rest of the story. Let's see what else we've got to go through here. You've got another one too. Speaking of environmental stuff, there's a event going on, a forum on November 4th, brought to you by California for Progress. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yes. So the California for Progress team has been involved with producing a panel that's going on at the Left Coast Forum. And this panel is titled A Guide to Battling Environmental Oppression in Your Backyard. And I think that that title kind of touches on the intersectionality of environmental oppression and how it really is happening everywhere, and we actually have to stand up and fight it everywhere that we are. One of the things about my time at Standing Rock is that, as we were there leaving, I really felt like there was this seed inside me that was going to be blown all over the world and spread like seeds, where we all go back to places that we live and work and really have to take on that mission to battle environmental oppression where we live. And there's so many issues just inside LA that I could go into about stand neighborhood drilling and all the oil drilling that's happening in inner cities, and the people in South LA who are getting sick from this fracking and oil drilling that's going on within hundreds of feet of their homes, within 30 feet of their homes. So we're trying to work to get a standoff so that no oil drilling could happen within 2,500 feet of people's homes, which would essentially shut down all the oil wells in LA, which would be fantastic. But anyway, this panel is going to be made up of some really awesome leaders. We are dividing it into two sections. So we're going to have the grassroots portion and the policy and action portion. We've got some incredible speakers. Walter Ruiz from AIM, Michelle Milner, who is the policy director at Divest LA. She's taught me so much. I did a lot of work with her team. We've got Jordan Marie Daniel, who just moved to LA from DC. And she's an young indigenous woman who's really been leading a lot of policy directives for Indian country, which has been fantastic. It's being hosted by Jeremy White. We've got Michelle Manos from Oil Money Out. And we're really bringing together a diverse group of speakers who are really about solution-based action. And how do we create the groundswell, the political movement, and how do we take that movement to the halls of government to affect real policy change at those levels? So a lot of people who've been working a long time and very hard to make this happen will be there at the LA Trade Tech college campus Saturday, November 4th. Our panels from 4 to 5:30. There's going to be stuff going on at this Left Coast Forum all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tickets are on a sliding scale and donation based. So you can get a ticket for the whole weekend for $25. It's really affordable. And what this Left Forum is aiming to do is to bring together all different voices from the left, including, a lot of times people of color are kind of left out of the conversation, bringing in Black Lives Matter, connecting them to Oil Money Out and the indigenous-led movements, and really starting that dialogue between different sides of the progressive movement, so we can start banding together and overcoming those past tactics of divide and conquer, to really create a collective and a coalition that's able to affect real change in our city, our state, and hopefully our world.
Right on. Yeah, you're so well spoken and eloquent, Madeline. I really appreciate that and all of your efforts out there in California.
It's because it's the Blarney Stone, man.
You got the gift of gab, no doubt about it. And, I'm certainly grateful that you're out there working on all these things for the rest of us. And it's an honor to have you here to shed some light on these issues and have a serious, heartfelt discussion on such important topics. Like I said earlier, it's so easy for people to just give up. So easy for people to just go into their little bubble, their little life, and not make the effort. But everything we do does make a difference. And you're a prime example of somebody who's having a really positive impact. And I want to thank you for that. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
I think just my main message to people is you are more powerful than you know. And even if you aren't going to be, on 7 different teams with 7 different organizations, which is sort of where I'm at right now, any level that you can participate in makes a positive impact. If you can find a group that's doing something great in your community, all the better, because we have the most power locally. And as we act locally to make the world a better place, that builds the power and the confidence to make these bigger changes at higher levels. And it's about capacity building. How do we develop ourselves as leaders and as community builders to act in ways that are going to empower the most people to stand up against that system of greed and say that we deserve more, our children deserve more, our planet deserves more. So I just want to, leave with a message of empowering everyone out there who's listening, that you can make a positive change. I'm not paid for any of these activities. I'm working in solar energy because I, again, want to help speed the world's transition to renewable energy. And I think that every individual can help with that too. These are all things I do with my free time because I'm passionate. And, somehow there is a way to make it all happen. So I just want to empower all you folks out there who are interested in getting more involved to get involved. Baby step your way in. I had no idea a year ago when I set out to do a little GoFundMe to bring a trailer to Standing Rock, how involved I would be a year later. So you can do it too. And thank you all for all that you do where you are.
Madeline, thank you so much. I think you made a really good point there about Standing Rock being like this incubator or this kind of blossom of seeds that burst forth. It empowered so many people, and we really saw what the government is really all about, how far they're willing to go to protect fossil fuel industry, the financial system, and it kind of stresses the importance that, if not now, when, if not you, who, right? It really and truly is time for people to step up to the plate, because what do you got to lose? Everything. Got everything to lose. And we also have everything to gain. Your efforts with getting the city of LA, getting people to divest from fossil fuel companies, from the dinosaur industry, from dinosaurs, literally the dinosaur industry. We have to replace these antiquated systems, the energy system, the financial system, the political system. And it's great to really get to talk with somebody who is on the front lines doing that every day, every way. So thank you so much, Madeline. Really appreciate having you on. You're welcome back on the show anytime you want to talk about things. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. I'll be back at some point. I love what you're doing and appreciate you for spreading the word, being part of the independent media that's really talking about the real issues. It's important. It's something I do in my spare time too. Hey, we got to wear many hats. There's not that many of us, but we're recruiting for more. So thank you, Max.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Take care. Well, there we have it, folks. Madeline, Merritt, thank you all for tuning in. Yesterday we had Derek Bros on the podcast, or on the live stream, talking about solutions. Daniel Reichert's got a joke for us. It looks like, what do you call a blind dinosaur? I don't know, Daniel. What do you call a blind dinosaur? We were waiting for that response. David Cocorico chiming in, collecting the minerals just as dirty, Max, for the solar and wind batteries. You speak the truth there, David. It's kind of a dilemma, isn't it? Kind of a catch-22. But one thing, once these minerals, let's say lithium, cadmium, things needed for batteries are out of the ground, they can be recycled. Whereas when you burn a bunch of fossil fuels, they're gone. So bear that in mind. Daniel Reichert, back to his joke. What do you call a blind dinosaur? Do you think he saw a Rex? Thank you, Daniel. Much appreciated. Do you think he saw us? Daniel Cocorico chiming in there too. We can take a quick look at the Jackson Hole Daily if everybody's keen on it. I didn't have time to go through too many links today getting ready for the broadcast, but I did get a good look at the paper. Again, the Jackson Hole Daily, servicing the wealthiest county per capita in North America. As far as newspapers go, it's a pretty good one. It's about 10% news, though, 70% advertising, 20% fluff. back to the topic of batteries and stuff. Jerry and Durbin Fairman saying, can't quartz crystals be used to make batteries too? Yeah, I believe so. If somebody's got a link to that. And then last week on the show, we covered that some scientists at MIT had discovered a new way, or were working on a new way to store energy. I believe it was just using sodium and water, a breathing battery. So, there are options out there. But bear in mind, everybody, if we can trust Nikola Tesla, the man who developed the first hydroelectric power, the man who was a brilliant visionary, developed AC power, literally electrified the world. Over 100 years ago, he had already figured out how to create unlimited free electrical power, right? The Wardenclyffe Tower out on Long Island. After his experiments on top of Pikes Peak wound up, it's a reality. These technologies have been suppressed. David Cocorico asking us, what do you call a blind dinosaur's dog? I don't know. What do you call it, guys? Getting into the Jackson Hole Daily here again. 70% fluff, or 70% ads. A lot of fluff. Winter's here in Wyoming. There is no shortage of precipitation coming down outside right now. A lot of snow up in the mountains. David chiming in. Do you think he saw us, Rex? I think you guys are getting these jokes from Jurassic Park, if I remember correctly. Good movie. Touches on a lot of important issues with the human psyche and human technology. But yeah, winter's here. Be careful driving out there. Moose Hockey, the local hockey team, their first game tonight. I think that they were the national champs for their league last year, but I could be wrong about that. Here's a pretty powerful political cartoon. Kind of taps into what we were talking with Madeline Merritt about, coming out of the Chattanooga Free Press. Clay Bennett. Hashtag Me Too, with the casting couch, women dealing with sexual assault, sexual harassment. Well, who do we got there? It's old Mother Nature herself, letting us know that she has been abused. Can't stress that enough. The rest of the opinion section, kind of boring. Big news, it's a huge deal. Dogs on drugs. Musher's kennel probed amid dog doping claims. So that's a really big deal. Fatal shooting in Denver at a Walmart. Police tranquilized and captured a mountain lion roaming Wyoming's largest city. In Cheyenne, it was a year old and weighed 60 pounds. It was a male. Dapple and the Sioux, the Cheyenne River Sioux, the Standing Rock Sioux are still going at it in the courts over the pipeline. So the No Dapple movement is still alive and well, although it's in the courts as opposed to on the ground. Drinking rate is up among Utah teens. High school seniors who said they drank alcohol within the past 30 days rose from 13.6% in 2015 to 14.7% last year, which is still much lower than the national average of 33.2% of teens saying they had drank alcohol within the last 30 days. Okay, so alcohol, my friends, is a drug. I was a bartender for 10 years. I know all too well how alcohol can damage people's lives. So all things in moderation. The tax bills, big news. Interestingly, they're talking about dropping the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%. Interestingly, on the business side, it sets a 10% tax on profits for overseas subsidiaries of U.S. corporations and would let U.S. companies return profits stockpiled overseas at a one-time 12% rate. Okay, so this tax bill supposedly going to help boost, small companies in the U.S., but that sounds like a huge giveaway, right? If you're a large multinational corporation and you can somehow launder your money internationally, you can bring it back into the U.S. at a one-time 12% rate compared to the current 35% corporate tax in the U.S., which is also being dropped to 20% if that goes through. Rick Perry, we had a great talk with Madeline about the fossil fuel industry, how absurd it is. And of course, we've got the head of the energy department saying fossil fuels can prevent sexual assault. Rick Perry, an avowed oil man from Texas, making pretty absurd claims about fossil fuels, saying, by using fossil fuels, we're able to electrify the developing world, which gives people lights, which decreases sexual assault. Might be true, but the same can be said of solar panels, wind power. Humans really don't need that much electricity to keep the lights on. Moving on to Puerto Rico, we've been covering that substantially. Here at Wake Up News, officials in the U.S. and Puerto Rico gave differing views Thursday on when power will be fully restored to the U.S. territory after Hurricane Maria hit as a Category 4 storm more than a month ago. Ricardo Ramos, director of the state-owned power company PREPA, said the utility has restored 35% of the electrical system's regular output. Okay, so 65% of Puerto Rico still without power, and expects to reach 50% by mid-November and 95% by mid-December. Okay, so pretty slow going there in Puerto Rico. But Ray Alexander, director of contingency operations for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, said the Corps' goal is to have 50% restored by the end of November and 75% by the end of January. So the Army Corps of Engineers pushing it back. Isn't that absurd? There are 3.4 million American citizens living on Puerto Rico. They've been without power since September 19th, a lot of them. More than half still, 65% without power. Governor Ricardo Rossello criticized the Army Corps of Engineers earlier this week for what he said was a lack of urgency in responding to Puerto Rico's island-wide blackout. If we don't reestablish power and other basic services, the damage to our economy will be even greater, said Puerto Rico's Public Affairs Secretary Ramon Rosario. We cannot allow that, and we have established clear goals. So Puerto Rico, again, we live in the era of geoengineering. We live in the era of weather warfare. Hurricanes are steerable. And this whole situation in Puerto Rico stinks to high heaven. It looks like hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans are being forced to leave their homes because they have no money, they have no jobs, they have no electricity, and they're having a hard time finding enough to eat or clean water to drink. So what's going to happen? The poor get kicked out. The rich move in and buy up the land for pennies on the dollar, and the beat goes on. U.S. passports to identify child sex offenders. They're going to put, it's not going to bring up their name in some international computer database, but those applying for a passport will not be issued one without the identifier, which will be a notice printed inside the back cover of the passport book that reads, "The bearer of this passport was convicted of a sex offense against a minor and is a covered sex offender pursuant to U.S. law." So I don't know how much that's going to really do, but step in the right direction, I guess. The gun death rate up for the second year in a row in the U.S. This is a prime example of how statistics are skewed, right? Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And the vast majority of people killed with guns, it's self-inflicted suicide. Epidemic of suicide in this country. 38,000 gun deaths last year. That's up from 36,000 in 2015 and around 33,000 each year between 2011 and 2014. Okay. Important to note, though. Let's see. Where is it? Total gun deaths due to homicide. God, where did I lose it? According to the FBI's raw numbers, the tally of U.S. homicides involving guns rose to nearly 11,000 last year, from about 9,600 the year before. Okay, the CDC also reported a continuing increase in the death rate from drug overdoses, which hit 20 per 100,000 last year, up from 16 the year before. Heroin and other opioids are driving the deadliest drug epidemic in U.S. history. It's important to note that a lot of people that die from drug overdoses, their deaths are not reported as drug overdoses. Whereas anytime somebody is killed with a firearm, it's pretty obvious what killed them, right? Still, the death rate due to firearms, including suicide, is 12 per 100,000 compared to the reported death rate from heroin, 20 per 100,000. Again, 2/3 of those gun deaths are suicides. So really the rate of homicide with a firearm is 4 deaths per 100,000. Moving along. Thank you so much for being here, folks. Got a lot of great comments there today. Trump has officially pushed forward with his nominee for the Fed, Jerome J. Powell. There he is. I'm going to miss you, Janet, you beautiful, beautiful beast. Thank you so much for printing so much money and giving it to the billionaires and millionaires and banks and the corrupt government. So that's going on there. Sounds like more of the same. Pretty good Dilbert today. If you don't know, Dilbert developed an app that would allow him to take control of his boss's brain. Maybe we should remove the neural interface so his natural brain works again. Or, and this is just a thought, we could create an app that makes him jump off the roof. Would that be murder or suicide? All we need is reasonable doubt, she says. So, pretty funny, Dilbert. Important, social commentary on phones controlling people's lives, right? Social media, the phone beeps nonstop trying to get your attention. Papa John's all upset because he's not selling as much pizza. Fuck Papa John. Fuck the NFL. Fuck sports. This is cool. Local initiative to get people to buy green power. We actually have pretty cheap power here in Wyoming. And you can buy 100% wind power for just a few more cents per kilowatt hour. So if you're serviced by Lower Valley Energy, get on it. It's worth it. I got that here at the house. Really doesn't cost me about $20 a month. Worth it. We got the scopes for y'all. Let me know if you want to get your scope read. And then we're into the fluffy duff. Well, I guess this is kind of cool. Scans reveal another void in the pyramid. The story of the Egyptians, the pyramids. Turns out that a bunch of Jewish slaves didn't build the pyramids because we still couldn't build them today with modern technology. Probably quite a bit older than is reported by the official academic establishment. And, whoever built them definitely had a lot of smarts. Interestingly, the Great Pyramid, the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, has captivated visitors since it was built as a royal burial chamber some 4,500 years ago. Are you sure about that, guys? Some people say it's a lot older and that it wasn't a burial chamber. Experts are still divided over how it and other pyramids were constructed, right? Because they don't know. We can't lift blocks that heavy today. And other pyramids, so even relatively minor discoveries generate great interest. Late last year, for example, thermal scanning identified a major anomaly in the Great Pyramid. Okay, 3 adjacent stones at its base had registered higher temperatures than others. So pyramids, pretty cool stuff. Again, the official story on how the pyramids were built, how old they are, the notion of, the story that so many people have been told by the Bible, probably not true. Sports, classifieds, scopes. We're not even going to get into it. So let's look at these scopes. Here we go. Let's start off with Daniel Reichert, Pisces. Thank you so much for tuning in, all your comments today. Let me grab a pen so I can follow Brian Peterson's lead and cross out the ones I've already read. Pisces, 4-star day. Open up communication between you and someone you often see at work. This person can be dominant, but often remains distant. you might find that you finally are able to come to an easy agreement on a key matter. Follow your intuition. Tonight, Daniel Reichert at a favorite haunt. Brian Peterson, my first Patreon subscriber, thank you so much. If anybody hasn't noticed it yet, well, I haven't really broadcast it. I'm going to show you all real quick. I'm so grateful for the Patreon subscribers, so grateful for the support that I've gotten via Patreon and PayPal, that I wanted to do a post about where the money went. Okay, over the last 2 months, I've been going full bore with this for 2 months, and my computer's freezing up a little here. So maybe, there we go. There we go. Come on, little computer. I'll read Aries while we're waiting for that to load up. For you, Brian, my first subscriber. 3-star day. You will find, or you move right past a friend's resistance and manage to help him or her in the process. The results could be dynamic. Your intuition guides you. If your inner voice suggests taking a financial risk within reason, such as buying a lottery ticket, do it. Tonight, Brian Peterson, my dear friend, treat a friend. Again, back to Patreon right quick here. I did this post yesterday. It's a public post. Anybody can read it. Full disclosure, where your money's going. Okay, we raised $674 over the last 2 months, which I'm extremely grateful for. Thank you so much. As promised, once we hit 200, I upgraded the WordPress plan for wakeupnews.net. I've got a meeting with WordPress today with their tech support. They're going to walk me through a few things. So that should be a boon to the site. We're going to get that going. I spent $127 on a new webcam and other equipment for the live streams. That webcam, really great. Highly recommend that Logitech model. Then I got some stuff for the phone. $240 went to the Be Live service. That's how come we've got such fancy live streams now on the standard plan, billed yearly. So with your support, we should have Be Live service for the next year. Thank you very much. Then I also ponied up for access to this LiveLeap live stream sharing service, which it automatically shares the broadcast via social media to various Facebook pages, Twitter, LinkedIn. I can even set it up so it will automatically send text or email alerts to people. So anybody who's had trouble in the past with Facebook kind of censoring your access to these broadcasts, if you want to get in touch with me, send me a personal message with your email. I can set it up so you're automatically notified by email or text every time we go live. And then I ponied up this one. I don't think I'm going to stick with this because the quality's not as good, but I devoted $82.44 to Restream.io. I'm thinking about canceling that. Kind of pulled the trigger on that on a whim because they were having a big sale on Halloween. So I'm going to keep experimenting with that for a while. I have a week to potentially cancel that. And so we spent $691.99 out of the $640. Also raised $27 via Indiegogo, where we're trying to raise $10 million to buy the services of 100 real journalists for 1,000 legit work days at $100 per journalist per day. So we'll see how that goes. Not holding my breath on that one, but I just wanted to let you all know that's where your money's going, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you so much. Moving along, back to the scopes. We did Pisces, we did Aries. David Coco Rico, what's up, bro? Thank you for your support on Patreon as well. Cancer, 5-star day. Friends surround you and have their own agenda. You might choose to use some of their ideas, and as a result, you could learn a lot. Note when you feel tired or bored. In that case, move on, as you need to stay with what you feel great doing. Tonight, David, on your 5-star night, flow with the moment. Okay, and for the wife, 3-star day, Leos, the ladies that tie my own heart up in knots, I don't know why. Be prepared to say no if you so choose. You will have many requests coming your way today. Your creativity emerges and others notice. If you feel stifled, head home to work. You will come up with one idea after another. Tonight, invite friends over for a new version of TGIF. So, David, I hope you and your wife, what's your wife's name? I don't even know it yet. I hope you and your wife have a lovely evening. J. Scott Knorr, I already read Pisces, so hopefully you caught that one. Geo Folds, I just read Leo, so hopefully you caught that one. Daniel Reichert, I'm a water sign, my wife's an earth. Together we make mud. You know, mud can be a lot of fun. So I think that's a good thing. J. Scott Knorr, back to the pyramids. He's talking Anunnaki. David Cocorico Sedano, they were built before the wheel, right? Pretty wild. Pretty wild. Daniel Reichert saying Max for president. All right, I'm down with that. Matthew Kehoe, great. Succinct, to the point. I don't know if I'd be a very good politician if I had to be totally honest about my past. Who knows? Mike McCleary, what's up, brother? Thank you so much for tuning in. Sagittarius coming at you, bro. 4-star day. You might be overly serious and want to withdraw. You won't have that opportunity unless you decide to take some time off, even just for the afternoon. Good luck comes to those who take some personal time. You also need to trust your inner voice. Tonight, Mike, time to relax. Daniel Reichert chiming in with ooh. Ashley, right on, David. I'm going to remember that. Geo Folds, thank you so much. You know, kind of lighten the numbers here as we're winding down. 28 viewers. But I tell you what, it's awesome having 28 of you right here. I really appreciate all of you. Again, thank you so much for your comments, your likes, your shares. If you want to get added to the mailing list, I'm going to try to set it up so you can sign up at wakeupnews.net, or you can hit me up with a personal email if you want to give me your personal information. I promise I'm not going to sell it. We'll probably only get a couple hundred emails over the course of the next year. But cool to have ways to get in touch with one another outside of the social media networks, since we all know they're not quite as reliable as we would like them to be. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Madeline Merritt. You might not agree with everything. You might not agree with her approach, but here at Wake Up Wyoming, we're all about a diversity of voices, right? It's very easy to get totally discouraged. It's very easy to disengage from the political process. You know, I know from my personal experience, nothing drives me crazier than going to some political meeting, some county commissioners meeting or city council meeting, and trying to effect change, right? Because, you know, all the parliamentary procedure, all the hoopla, the elected officials say one thing, then they do the exact opposite. It's extremely frustrating for me. But for other people, they love it. And it's great to know that there are beautiful, powerful, inspired, and inspiring women out there like Madeline Merritt who are out there making a difference. Daniel Riker saying it's all sewn up anyway. You might be right. David Cocorico saying school board. Yeah, right. That's frustrating too. Matthew Kehoe summing it up. Madeline rocked it. Doug Meyer, thank you, sir. He's saying thanks, Max. Always look forward to Wake Up News. You know, I appreciate all of you so much. And on that note, I'm taking the weekend off. It is snowing. I'm going skiing. Hopefully, I'll get a little live stream or two out to you. But for the rest of the day today, I'm going to be working on the Wake Up News website. Again, I got a meeting with WordPress tech support to hammer out a few details there. With your support, we're upgraded to a business plan, which gives us a lot more functionality, and that's huge. So thank you. Your boy Mog. Stay active, stay aware, try to stay optimistic, and take care of yourselves and those you love, and enjoy every day like it's your last, because very well may be. No guarantees in this life. Y'all take care. One love. Peace.